Welcome back to Quickie Wiki What. I'm Joseph, joined as usual by my partner Justin. I am recording this, finally. Every episode we bring to the table a Wikipedia article we found interesting and discuss our findings. We are streaming this episode live on Twitch. Hello to the chat. But you'll also be able to find the VOD on YouTube afterwards, as well as the audio wherever you get your podcasts. So let's get into it.
Deja vu.
You've been wanting to do an episode of Deja, which is not the topic
but it's not
for
the
today.
topic.
But you've been wanting to do one. And I keep thinking we have already done that because you did it for the...
We did some practice episodes to see how it would go, and maybe we were going to record it.
To see what our chemistry was like.
Yeah.
We have none.
And then we found out it was bad, and then was like, let's do it anyways.
We have zero chemistry. But maybe we'll do Deja Vu someday.
Ooh, yeah.
But today, we're back after a 2-week break. Justin was sick with
the COVID.
COVID. You did not, however, spontaneously humanly combust.
I did not.
Which is what we're talking about.
Close. I think I was close.
Yeah, you were, that first day, you were kind of knocked out.
I was seeing the angel of death.
You slept for like 20 hours or something.
I seen the angel of death. She had worms from her eyes.
Yeah, I was making sure I had all the passwords to the bank accounts.
Yeah, it was just
looking up bridges to throw you off of.
Yeah.
I was stressed.
Oh, he spontaneously human combusted. Police?
No. I went to the store and I bought Justin naked juice.
Mm-hmm.
I bought Gatorade too because I thought I was going to get it. I didn't get it.
You dodged it.
I dodged it. I slept in here in the office for 8 nights.
Yeah.
While you were testing positive. So I wore a mask all week and...
We were doing masking, kind of staying away from each other a little bit. I'm surprised. You know, they say if you have a dog, then the dog's going to give it to the other person regardless, but... I didn't want to tell you that because I was like, oh, you'd be scared.
I read the opposite. I read animals don't really transmit it.
Oh.
But if any animal would, it would be Piggy.
Something on the internet said one thing and then another part of the internet said another thing.
It's a shock.
Go figure.
No, Piggy will lick up your nose, run to me, lick up my nose. I'm very shocked that it didn't happen.
Right.
But who knows? Maybe I just was asymptomatic. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, do you have any show news this week?
Well, no, not really. But so the last one was the marathon. Was about the marathons.
Right.
I remembered that my aunt does the ultra marathons.
Right.
That's like she runs like hundreds of miles over the course of like a couple of 3 days or something like that.
Like off road too. She doesn't run on pavement, I think, right?
Yeah.
She runs like on grass.
I don't know. I was thinking about that and I was like, I'd be remiss if I didn't say. So marathons, which are usually 26 miles, that's just like some people do it even further. They take it to even more of an extreme. And then like triathlons too, you know. The Ironman triathlons, that's like a marathon and a super long bike ride and a swimming a lot. What?
Yeah, it just seems it's a little too much.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I had that kind of energy to put towards anything. I wouldn't put it towards running, but I would put it towards something else. Learning something. Oh, which we're about to do right here on Quickie Wiki What. This is a topic that's probably been covered by many other people in many other better
but not like
ways.
This.
But not like this, not by two gay husbands.
Two Gay Tuesday on Monday.
Not by two gay husbands. And not, you're learning about spontaneous human combustion from the gay perspective.
Yeah.
When did you first hear about spontaneous human combustion?
Well, you know, it sounded familiar, but I never really looked into it. I always thought it was just kind of like one of those silly things that people would say as like a thing that could never happen, but they would it was kind of like a jokey.
I took it very seriously from a young age.
Whoa, okay.
Because there was a 1997 episode of Unsolved Mysteries.
Uh-huh.
So I was 9.
Okay.
Too young to be watching.
Yeah.
I I'm pretty sure it was a 1997 episode. I tried to look it up before this, and they talked about spontaneous human combustion, and it was presented to my childhood brain as something very real and something that could happen. And so I was on the lookout for the signs. Overheating, little bit of scent of burning, which was everywhere in the South. Everyone burns their trash.
Being a
yard.
lush, that's a sign of it.
Being a 9-year-old lush.
Yep. Yep.
Drinking that hidden the NyQuil.
Getting that hard liquor.
That's when I first heard about it, and I didn't realize it was. I mean, let's get into it. The Wikipedia article says it's pseudoscience, pseudoscientific, which means now I'm inceptioning the Wikipedia article for pseudoscience because I wanted to know what pseudoscience was exactly. Statements, beliefs, or practices that claim to be both scientific and factual, but are incompatible with the scientific method. Characterized by contradictory, exaggerated, or unfalsifiable claims, reliance on confirmation bias rather than rigorous attempts at refutation. That's a lot of big words.
That really is.
And I'm really proud of myself for pronouncing them all.
You just said them all. Perfect.
Normally contradictory is a hard word to pop off with.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just
wanted
wanted
to applause. Yay!
I just wanted to draw attention.
Applause thing.
Oh, if I hit,
is that?
I did the right one.
Okay.
Sometimes I hit the laughter one accidentally instead of applause, but we did it right. So
there you go. I can't hear it, but I just take. You could have said it. You could have done it wrong. You said, "Yep."
You could have just clapped for me, but that's okay.
Well, but
oh yeah, you've got your hands full.
Yep.
Okay. What would you like to say about the overview of spontaneous human combustion?
Well, so I will get us started with what is just spontaneous combustion.
Oh, yeah, because we didn't even say what any of it was.
So, and it's basically just like out of nowhere, a person bursts into flames.
That's spontaneous human combustion.
That's spontaneous human combustion, where it's not like, oh, you're standing next to a fire and an ember flies over and then you have gasoline on you and you.
No,
That's just regular combustion.
It's like sizzle. Your whole body sizzles, turns into a pile of ash and goo, and it's from a unperceived source.
Right. Spontaneously.
No outside things working.
Well, and that's kind of like, so my kind of outside the lines research was, so what is spontaneous combustion all by itself? And then also, what is just fire? But
we're going back to caveman time.
We're going back to caveman time, right?
What is fire?
What is fire? But it's kind of like an interesting topic, actually. You don't really stop it. You take it for granted. It's like, oh, fire is it's fire. You know what it is. But it's the combination of three things. It's heat, it's oxygen, and heat, oxygen, and a source of fuel source. Something
I thought
that's
it was
combustible.
Charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent.
That's my fire sound effect. I can't do clap.
What were they? What were the three again?
It's oxygen, like free oxygen.
Yeah.
Like it's in the atmosphere. Heat.
Yeah.
And then also a combustible material.
Okay.
And so all those three things have to be present. That's actually, Earth is the only place in the whole solar system that all three of those things are present.
What about the sun?
The sun is just a big ball of like radiation. It doesn't have it's not like a fire. It's just a big ball of radiation and heat.
I don't know, Justin.
Yeah.
I've seen some cartoons.
It's pretty hot if you go. Be sure to wear sunglasses.
I didn't realize that Earth was the only place where it could happen. I guess oxygen is the main thing that you kind of think about.
Yeah. And then
it's not really.
Most combustible things are like carbon too. So it's like, where is there? Like coal? Is there cotton on the moon? No, it's just a bunch of rocks. Or on other places is gases and stuff. And so at least they haven't observed it anywhere else. Maybe there's little pockets or maybe they haven't found it, but just to have fire in the first place. But then what's spontaneous combustion? Well, obviously, you can get fire, right? You can just strike a match.
There's
all kinds of ways that you can do it. But what spontaneous combustion is just stuff that's sitting around in a pile. And then all of a sudden you look over there and you're kind of like, I'm playing checkers, checking the newspaper. And then you look back and it's like, oh my gosh, it's on fire. And there wasn't a match or anything thrown at it. It's just like.
And does that happen?
It does. And it's.
Well, what starts it?
So it's like
But is it spontaneous if there has a source?
But that's the whole thing. It's like, so an example is hay. A big pile of hay. Hey, fire flamers.
The gay perspective. Once again.
Hey. So it sits around in a pile and it gets like a little bit fermented. It gets a little bit wet. It gets a little bit of a chemical reaction. It starts doing a chemical reaction that makes heat. Hay itself is also like insulated, right? So it keeps that heat in. And then eventually that heat gets hot enough and next thing you know, fire. But hay is also very flammable. It's burnable, It is all three of those and lets air circulate around. It can just catch on fire just without someone throwing a match on it or anything.
Wow.
I know.
But it has to be pretty hot.
But it's that chemical reaction of
that makes it hot?
That does, yeah.
I don't know. I just don't trust farms.
Oh, no.
Do you know?
No.
My pappy had like a big farm. He was a farmer, so like bales of hay in a farm. I don't know.
Only thing I would want is a donkey. I would just be friends with the donkey.
Why?
Because they're just like, I like donkey. We talked about the golden ass, the donkeys, and they're just like, I don't know. They're kind of like their own thing. They're so independent. It's like horses are always just doing what you tell them to, and they're like, oh, horses are so noble. They always listen. Donkeys are like, I'm not doing that.
Okay, that's fair. But then why do you like dogs more than cats?
I like both, but dogs are more fun.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, anyway, so thank you for telling us what fire and spontaneous combustion are.
And just real quick, though, but a couple other things. Hey, like oily rags, like you got a big can of oily rags sitting around. That's something that don't ever do that because they can spontaneously combust just for similar reasons as the hay. Like coal has been known to do it, but I think that has to be like in like hot. So,
and you're not supposed to hang crystals from your windows.
Oh,
but that's different.
Yeah,
that's not spontaneous. Anyway, so spontaneous human combustion, like we said, is death from a fire without an apparent external source of ignition, according to the wiki, and it's the belief that the fire begins within the body of the victim.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like, allegedly, it's not like they dropped a match, they dropped a cigarette, which it turns out that's usually what it can be attributed to various things.
But you think about your body, it's like there's chemical reactions and stuff happening, and you maybe... much like the hay, it's the right set of circumstances. I could see somebody like thinking it's kind of plausible.
Yeah, but they go into it later on about like the skepticism of like, oh, this only seems to happen when people are alone.
Yeah.
You don't see someone sitting at Starbucks and they burst into flames. This only happens when nobody's watching.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no witnesses. There's no...
Right.
If it were a real thing, you'd see people catching on fire everywhere.
Yeah.
And I just don't think your body would have evolved to have the potential. That's not an evolutionary
benefit. Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe they used to.
Maybe catch on fire.
That's what happened to the Neanderthals. They all caught on fire. They spontaneous combusted.
I think there's some fossil records. But so let's read the British Medical Journal in 1938, there was an article by L.A. Perry, and it cited an 1824 published, what's this called, Medical Jurisprudence, which stated some things that are in common with cases of spontaneous human combustion.
Okay.
So this is coming from what? It's like the 1920s, covered by the 1820s, covered by the 1930s.
This is like the Victorian era, kind of some of the earlier scientific
I wouldn't call
that
it
kind of stuff.
Yeah, scientific.
Well, like when they're starting to get into more documenting medical stuff.
So the recorded cases have these things in common. 1, the victims are chronic alcoholics. 2, they are usually elderly females. 3, the body has not burned spontaneously, but some lighted substance has come into contact with it.
Well, that all by itself, that's not
spontaneous human combustion. 4, the hands and feet usually fall off. 5, the fire has caused very little damage to combustible things in contact with the body. And 6, the combustion of the body has left a residue of greasy and fetid ashes, very offensive in odor.
So by the time they did this, like you said, it was the 1820s is when they were talking about this, but it had been going on for a while before that. And
allegedly.
But so I'll talk about the first lady.
Cornelia Zangari Bondi.
Cornelia, she was an Italian noblewoman, and she died of supposedly, this in 1731.
Age 66.
So she was in her 60s, yeah. And I'll just read this thing. That's like an account of her.
Do you want to read this whole thing?
Just part of it.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the guy has. Do you want to read the original source, or do you want to read just the summary of it?
You can read whatever part you want.
I'll just do the summary of it.
I read this wiki page as well.
It's good. It's so
it's gross.
It's really, yeah. So during her last dinner, the 66-year-old countess was, quote, dull and heavy. Some accounts report the countess was a brandy drinker and that she used to sprinkle camphorated brandy on her body to relieve physical pain. So that's, sprinkling brandy on yourself. That's maybe
flammable.
Maybe. The maid accompanied to her room and spent over 3 hours chatting and praying. Okay.
God, people were so bored back then.
Yeah.
They really just had to chat and pray over and over again.
She got hammered at dinner.
She got hammered, and all she wanted to do was chit chat and pray.
Chit chat and pray. Oh, cure
calm
me
down,
of
Cornelia. Girl, read a book.
Ways. So the maid left her mistress already asleep. The next day, when she did not get up the usual time, she went to wake her and found the remains of the countess. The room was full of soot. The body of the countess had been reduced to a pile of ashes that was a little more than 1 meter from the bed, although her lower legs below the knee, 3 fingers, and the front of her skull were relatively intact. So everything is just ashes except for kind of the tops and the bottoms of the ends of her limbs and whatnot.
The less fatty places,
right,
which we'll discover later, has a bearing on why those are not burning.
Right.
The most interesting part to me is the goo. In a lot of these instances, they talk about goo, oil, so they say a greasy and smelly layer, which is like what we'll come to find out is apparently like melted fat.
Yeah.
Melted body fat, essentially. And it's just kind of this gross, sloppy, stinky. So it says, the floor of the chamber was so thick, smeared with a gluish moisture that it could not be taken off, and the stink spread more and more through the other chambers. So that was from an extract by Mr. Paul Rowley.
Yeah, So It really was. So, and the other thing about it too is like in her room, it's not like, oh, the bed was burnt up and everything.
Oh, sure.
Nothing out. Like the sheets were consumed, but like everything around is full of combustible stuff, and it stayed right there intact.
And that's all like, I mean, this is the account of like what, 1731.
Yeah.
It seems that, and it even says on the wiki page that like some of these are, it seems like they intentionally leave out like light sources, fire sources to build the mystery.
Yeah. And there's kind of a political agenda too, where they're kind of like, oh, everyone was a heavy drinker, so just don't drink so heavily, right? And
they're trying to point the finger at like alcohol. Don't drink, you'll burn. So that one was that was pretty interesting. Scientifically, did you read about Joe Nickel, forensic analyst, and John F. Fisher? Oh, for John F. Fisher is the forensic analyst. Science investigator Joe Nickel. So they have done a lot of research. It says they had a 2-part report published in the International Association of Arson Investigators.
Yeah. And this was like more recently. This was like 1980 in the mid 80s when they did this. And I don't know if they're still alive, but it sounds like they went around and talked about it and kind of like, oh, what's the scientific explanation for what's happening?
I think Joe Nickel might have been on the Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh.
I'm not entirely sure. I was trying to look up the episode, and it had some stuff by him, but I don't know if it was from the episode. So they said where the destruction was extensive, they think additional fuel sources were involved, chair stuffing, floor coverings, flooring itself, and then they talk about the melted fat. So that goes into a process known as the wick effect.
Right. So that is basically like, so, you know, a candle, you think about how a candle burns, it's got just like this little tiny string. And that's the thing that like catches on fire and makes the fire kind of possible in the first place. If you just like take a candle or take a match and stick it on wax, it's not going to burn.
Sure.
And if you just take a piece of string and catch it on fire, it'll burn out in like 10 seconds, or not 10, but it'll burn out way faster than it's the combination of the string with the wax. And so that's kind of what's happening is like some piece of cloth, a shirt, a blanket or something like that, basically kind of like bonds to your skin. And then that catches on fire and it creates this kind of wick effect where it's doing the same. It's acting kind of like a candle, only burning more from the inside out.
Melting the fat.
Yep.
And keeping a fire going.
And that I could see that, and I didn't read about this, but maybe protect it. It's kind of like it's melting. It's making some other byproduct that's not combustible. And it's leaving that nasty residue that doesn't burn, that smells bad, but that protects the other stuff from catching on fire too.
Right. Well, and they also talked about that in the sense of like, I mean, they talked about nearby objects not, being touched or not being burned or anything. But like they mentioned on the Wikipedia, you get close to a campfire, but you don't catch on fire.
Yeah.
You're not like, it's not like everything in the vicinity of a fire burns, melts, or catches on fire.
Well, and then this would be like the one thing they said about the alcohol playing a part is like someone that's like passed out drunk.
Oh, right.
They might just not, or they could die. They could be dead already. They have some kind of stroke or something. And then, or you fall asleep with a cigarette in your hand. And just something that, something happens, your body just doesn't react and you suffocate from the smoke or something like that. And then it's probably not like they're witnessing themselves burning to death.
They're probably unconscious.
Yeah.
And it talks about like, there's evidence of like maybe a heart attack.
Yeah.
Probably not physical evidence because they're goo.
Yeah.
But it's seen in people who are like, maybe they were smoking, dropped the cigarette, like you said, and they dropped it because they had a heart attack, or because they passed out or something because of alcohol or something. So then they start, it just burns them, and you don't wake up because the smoke, you've passed out, or you're just done.
Yeah. And reading that, I think that makes a lot of sense. I could see that happening, but I don't think it's spontaneous. I don't think it's that self-ignition thing.
I thought you were going to say, I don't think that's the only reason. Or I thought you were going to say you believe in it. It really is. I feel like there was a time where, like before the internet, where it was like on Unsolved Mysteries. I'm sure that they had like a flip side to it, especially if they had that guy talking. But I doubt that's what they focused on.
But that's all they've got to do is kind of that's not why people tune into the show. It's like the commercials, like they've spontaneously combusted and building up this whole kind of
it's unsolved mysteries.
They did it.
They don't want it to be solved.
In the Victorian era too, it sounds like they're like, oh, there was a candle nearby, but let's not talk about that.
Right, or a fireplace.
Yeah, they're just
an oil lamp. Yeah, or something.
There's all kinds of explanations, and they're just trying to like be spooky, scare people. And the nice thing about the internet today, it's kind of full of conspiracy theories and whatnot, but it's also like, if you know where to look, you can kind of debunk it pretty quickly. And it's like,
right.
If someone doesn't have unsolved mysteries, there wasn't like that counterpoint necessarily. It could have been them just, maybe they did. Kind of like I don't know. There's all kinds of shows like that.
Well, it's more fun to believe it was like, I don't know. I feel like they were probably so bored back then. They needed something to, they were really stressed anyway, peasants and such. Yeah. But like, you need something to stress people out.
Don't drink your brandy.
You got to keep people on your toes. Yeah, don't drink alcohol is what they were telling people. And, be on your toes. You got to be on your toes. They believed in unicorns, mermaids. It was a magical time.
Yeah.
Dragons. Now we did mention feet don't, with the wick effect, it does mention feet don't typically burn because they have the least fat. Hands have very little fat, but if they're like resting on your abdomen, they might sizzle up as well.
Yeah.
But, it doesn't seem like it lists some notable examples of this. And, it just seems that they all have explanations. Like there are examples up to the Wikipedia list December 2010. A man in Ireland was recorded as spontaneous combustion by the coroner. It was left to the conclusion, like that one, I don't think they mention a source.
See, but that's different. They're like, he burned and we don't know what started it, but that's not the same thing as we don't know what started it. Therefore, he must have spontaneously combusted from his own, like
right, jumping from like point A to point C.
Right. It's like, it should have just said the source of the ignition is unknown. And you don't have to say specifically it's spontaneous human combustion.
Now, the alternative theories.
Oh, I didn't even look at that.
You didn't look at the alternative theories?
No, I was just like, I just want to get the answer. Okay.
You got to know what ancient aliens would say.
Oh, okay. I'm going to learn something now.
So, Larry E. Arnold had a book in 1995 called Ablaze, proposed that there was a subatomic particle called pyrotron.
Oh.
And that the flammability of the human body could be increased by certain circumstances, like alcohol in the blood. Proposed extreme stress could trigger you to explode.
There you go.
And this process may use no external oxygen to spread through the body. I don't know. I think you have to prove that there's something called a pyrotron.
I think, I want to say like Einstein might have caught that.
Well, I don't know. I don't even know what a subatomic particle is.
Well, it's something that's
Protons,
so small.
Is that protons, neutrons, and electrons?
It's quarks. It's all the little ones.
String theory. We should do string theory one week.
I don't know about that. Candle wicks. Candle wicks, the only string you need to worry about.
So in UK writer Michael Harrison, in his 1976 book Fire from Heaven, suggests that it's connected to poltergeist activity.
Oh, okay.
He argues, quote, the force which activates the poltergeist originates in and is supplied by a human being, which I don't know. It says it belongs to poltergeist phenomena.
So poltergeist is
ghost.
That's noise. That's right. Noise. Ghost.
Noise?
What does poltergeist
in
mean?
German?
Yeah.
I think noisy spirit or something. I don't
know. Then they're so it's kind of like the acoustical, like a sonic boom, and then and then it makes a spark.
I think that theory's a little old for 1976.
Yeah.
I think that sounds a little Victorian.
Yeah.
Now it has been suggested ball lightning. You know what ball lightning is?
Ball lightning? No.
Ball lightning is this phenomenon. You know what? Let's go to the wiki page.
Go! Quickie Wiki,
I used to be very afraid of ball lightning as a kid too.
Oh, okay.
So it's a, quote, rare and unexplained phenomenon described as luminescent spherical objects that vary from pea size to several meters in diameter, associated with thunderstorms. And it's like lightning that like rolls across the earth.
Oh.
It's like a tumbleweed of lightning.
A lightning tumbleweed.
A lightning
Gee whiz.
tumbleweed.
That's like on Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's based on ball lightning.
Wow.
Mortal Kombat's based on actual events. Now it says that
Street Fighter was actual events.
No. They're both.
Oh.
So it says that this would be circumstantial, but there apparently charring of human limbs is seen in a number of ball lightning cases.
Wow.
But I don't think that people are sitting at home and they're sizzling up.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think ball lightning is rolling through your house and like sizzling you up and nothing else.
And right. And it's like, oh, this bolt of lightning came in through your wall.
It does it.
And it doesn't leave a trace.
Oh, yeah. I don't know.
Like, I can see that, but then you'd be kind of like, oh, you get struck by regular lightning. You're going to see that too. It's going to be a big like scar on your couch around you. Maybe that could happen.
You never know.
You never know.
You didn't even know about ball lightning.
I didn't.
That should be its own, because you go to the Wikipedia page on that one. Oh, that one's long.
What?
Oh my God. Look up videos of ball lightning on YouTube. It is wild.
Let's do it. Let's just watch YouTube videos next episode.
I'm fine with that. I didn't know there was all of this stuff about it. That's pretty wild.
Doritos saying they love coming to the podcast for new things, to fear. There you go.
Well,
you're welcome.
Don't fear. I guess in summary, as a Quickie Wiki what summary, unless do you have anything else to say about spontaneous human combustion?
No, I think that's it.
I would say don't fear it. Maybe, I think it's just a good suggestion in general to not like get to the point of about to be passing out and then like light a cigarette. It's not a good idea to ever light a cigarette, but don't pass out near flame sources.
Yeah.
Would be my suggestion, which I think is good advice no matter if you're afraid of spontaneously humanly combusting.
Right. The phenomenon of the wick effect is a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it could happen to you.
Yeah.
And it probably will.
But you do have some control over it. It is not just this complete passive
right
thing that can...
Oh, Just wear all fire. Well, I was gonna say fireproof clothing, but that's not gonna work. Although the wick effect
It would
needs like the burning
Right.
of the fat can't just burn on its own.
Sleep in your tinfoil pants.
Wrap your whole body in tinfoil before bed each night.
Yep. Spacesuit. Sleep in the spacesuit.
I don't know if spacesuits are anti-flammable.
I don't know.
I think they're
kind of
anti-radiation.
Oh, maybe.
I don't know.
Let's catch an astronaut on fire and see.
That's for a different Quickie Wiki What.
Okay.
I saw the hit movie Gravity starring Sandra Bullock,
Mhm.
and I feel like some people were on fire in that movie. Did you see that movie?
Not in space.
The whole movie was in space.
No, but like you wouldn't be on fire in space.
Oh, well, like inside the shuttle.
Oh, I don't know.
You
I
can
don't
be
remember.
on fire
It's been.
inside the shuttle.
I watched it when it first came out, but I didn't really remember it.
All right. Well, we'll call NASA. We'll try to get them to set some astronauts on fire, and we'll report back.
Write your senator. Write your congressperson.
Any final words on spontaneous human combustion before
Well,
we end
and
this week?
everything else. Lightning isn't real, and ball lightning isn't real. Don't worry about it.
If we worried about every single thing that could happen to us, every single way of death, I think we'd just spend all life worrying.
Yeah.
Which I do, and which I take Lexapro for. So that definitely helps with that. But talk to your doctor before starting an antidepressant, anti-anxiety. But spontaneous human combustion, probably the least of your worries.
Don't worry about it.
Probably the least of your
about it.
worries. In this economy, probably the least of your worries.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening. We've been really glad to be back. Yes. And I'm glad we could bring you such an uplifting topic. Ask your doctor about spontaneous human combustion.
Yes.
And as usual, all this came from the wikis, but there is tons more information about this topic out there, even on the Wikipedia page for it. We just scratched the surface. Go check it out. And thank you for listening to Quickie Wiki What. Once again, you'll also be able to find the VOD of this episode on YouTube as well as the audio wherever you get your podcasts. We will be streaming next week's episode live again on twitch.tv/halfmoonjoe. So we will see you then with more wiki articles to discuss. Farewell. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.